Shares of Activision closing the day higher after a federal judge has paved the way for Microsoft to acquire the video game giant by declining the FTC's request to block that $69 billion deal. Let's bring in Michael Pachter, Wedbush Managing Director, Equity Research. Michael, on the back of that ruling here in the U.S., we saw the U.K. say it's pausing its litigation. Does this pave the way for full regulatory approval globally?
I doubt that you get full regulatory approval. I think the CMA continues to do its best to block the deal, but it looks like Microsoft has reached an accommodation with the UK. So the UK sticking point was that it was concerned about Activision games being on the Microsoft streaming service called Game Pass. They had conditionally approved all the console, PC, mobile side of the business, which is 95% of the business. So I think that carve out there satisfies the UK, and then Microsoft can appeal that decision, and it might take a year or two to get streaming games, Activision games on streaming in the UK. But really, it's a tiny, tiny impact on the deal. So yes, 99% approved with that one small exception.
Michael, how do you think investors are looking at that carve-out that we could see for the UK? Is that something that they will be fine with, given the fact that it is just a small percentage of their business?
Yeah, Microsoft has 25 million subscribers that pay, call it $15 a month, so $180 a year. So that's $4 billion. The UK at most is 1/6 of that. And there's no way anybody's quitting because Call of Duty isn't going to show up on Game Pass in the UK. In fact, if there's an investment opportunity, I would invest in Irish VPNs because the UK consumer who wants to play Call of Duty will just pretend he's in Ireland, and the EU has already approved the deal. But revenue-wise, negligible impact, almost zero.
Michael, when you look at the stock move today on the back of this Activision getting a bump of roughly 10%, I mean, how much of that do you think is justified? Because you go back to the original announcement of the deal, was seen as a big bump for Microsoft as they try to add to their mobile offerings in gaming. I mean, give me your assessment as it stands right now for both of these companies.
Well, the market was really pessimistic about the deal. It was announced in January of 2022, so a year and a half ago. And the market thought that the FTC was going to be intransigent and dig its heels in and win. The problem, I think, with that view is that it presupposed that Microsoft would pull all the games off of PlayStation. And Microsoft started saying from the outset that they would support PlayStation. They, in fact, offered Sony a 10-year deal. They signed a 10-year deal with Nintendo, and they offered the same terms to PC service and to NVIDIA. So once that was out of the way, maintaining the status quo, the only sticking point is whether putting Activision's content on the streaming service is unfair to the consumer. And even the UK, who blocked the deal on that, said it's actually good for the consumer. We're just concerned they'll raise the price of Game Pass. So ultimately, the market was wrong. They thought that that the government could stop any deal, and the judiciary is just not corrupt. I don't care what people say. The judiciary kind of tends to rule based on what the law says, and the law here was pretty clear. If Microsoft maintains the status quo, the consumer isn't hurt. And if the consumer isn't hurt, there's no basis to block the deal. And that's exactly what happened this morning in the district court.
And Michael, this ruling certainly is a blow, I think it's fair to say, to the FTC. And we know the FTC had been aggressive or wanted to be aggressive in cracking down on these very large acquisitions. What do you think this does for companies thinking about future deals? Is this going to be enough confidence for these companies to come off the sidelines and maybe execute on some of these deals that they have been waiting on the sidelines with?
I think the signal here is, the FTC is going to try to object to any deal done by any, Fortune 10 company. So Google and Microsoft and Apple and Amazon, anything they do is going to be scrutinized. This one, the law just was on Microsoft's side. And, if you think about it, Microsoft's a nearly $200 billion revenue company and Activision's an $8 billion company. So this is Goliath, buying David. It's not Goliath buying Goliath. And, so I think that, you'll still get scrutiny of giant deals where, there's monopoly power. But this one just didn't move the needle in the games industry. The FTC has to have a basis for its objection other than we don't like big tech. And I think this puts them on notice that the courts are not going to side with them if that's the reason that they object.
So certainly this is going to be assessed on a case-by-case basis, but does it at least remove some cloud on those concerns about regulation? I mean, to your point, you're saying this is not sort of big tech versus big tech coming together, but the FTC has been aggressive in many of these deals, and the concern has been that they would really stop any type of M&A activity. Now, at least, they've suffered a big blow on this particular one. As an investor, how do you assess that?
The FTC just doesn't like the big getting bigger. And, if it's a situation where an Amazon decides to get in a grocery and buy Whole Foods, I just don't think there's any basis to object to that back when it happened. If there's a situation where Amazon decides it doesn't have any capability to make movies and it buys MGM, no basis to attack that. The deals that should probably get blocked under this FTC are the Disney Fox acquisition. That's a tough one because that's, a big studio buying another big studio. T-Mobile, and Sprint, that's a big telecom buying another big telecom. And so I think that they're going to look at the big stuff. But honestly, when Facebook buys a little VR developer, they objected to that and they lost. And they lost this one. They've just got to start picking their battles. There's a reason that criminal prosecutors have a 98% conviction rate. It's not because everybody's guilty. It's because they try the cases that they have winners on. And so the FTC has to start behaving like a prosecutor and only pursuing the cases that they know they have a winner on. This was a loser from day one. They blew it on this one. And I hope that they learn their lesson and they stop going after companies that are really not breaking the law.
We will see if the FTC is a little bit more selective in some of the cases that they bring forward in the future. All right, Michael Pachter of Wedbush, thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean.